The International Christian Embassy Jerusalem is your embassy in the heart of Israel, founded in 1980. From our headquarters in Jerusalem through our branches in over 80 nations and yours in Canada, we seek to challenge the church to take up its scriptural responsibility, to remind Israel of the promises made to her in the Bible, and to be a source of practical assistance to all the people in the land of Israel. On today's program, a Holocaust survivor shares his moving story. A panel discussion explores anti-Semitism within the Jewish community. And the new anti-Semitism. A Messianic Minister shares his views. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our affliction, so that we will be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God. For just as the sufferings of Christ are ours in abundance, so also our comfort is abundant through Christ.
אני עמדתי ליד אמא שלי, מחזיק את היד. אמא התכופפה עליי, לי ביידיש קוראים מוטל. והיא אומרת לי, מוטל, תנסה לברוח, שתוכל לספר מה היה פה. אני לא חשבתי הרבה, יצאתי מהשורה והלכתי לתוך היער. לא יודע מה זה להגיד אמא מגיל 9. וגם לא קיבלתי חיבוק של אמא שכל ילד מקבל. אלה הרסו לנו את הילדות. עשקו את הילדות. לא צעצוע היה לך, לא איזה משחק, לא משהו שילד, כל ילד בעולם, זה דבר מינימלי. לא היה לנו את זה, לא. אתם יודעים שהמלחמה לא נמשכה, לא חודש, חודשיים או שנה ושנתיים, נמשכה איזה 5 שנים. וכל פעם, כל יום אתה צריך להילחם על החיים שלך.
Because of the Holocaust, many kids like Mordecai were left orphaned. They survived, but now where do they go?
אנחנו באירופה נדדנו בכל מיני ארצות. בגרמניה, פולין, צרפת. בסוף באנו לצרפת, העלו אותנו לאונייה, תיאודור הרצל, ובאנו לחיפה. בחיפה האנגלים לא נתנו לרדת, לקחו אותנו לקפריסין. בקפריסין היינו 8 חודשים, ומעלת הנוער הוציאו אותנו, הביאו אותנו לכל מיני קיבוצים, פיזרו אותה, כי אנחנו כולנו יתומים, אין הורים, אין איפה להיות, לקחו לקיבוצים. בקיבוץ עבדתי על טרקטורים. עכשיו אני רוצה להגיד לך ככה, אנחנו בנינו והקמנו משפחות. הקמנו משפחה, למשל לנו, אני ואסתי, יש לנו 3 ילדים, 6 נכדים, שיהיו בריאים, והם חונכו לשרת את המדינה. צריך לשרת את המדינה.
Mordecai fought in the War of Independence and became a contractor for the army while his wife Esti studied and became a nurse. They both serve the people of their new nation.
אחרי זה עבדתי בכל מיני עבודות עם הטרקטור. איפה שהיו מלחמות, שם צריך ציוד. ועבדתי בכבישים. אם אני אומר שאני בניתי, זה לא פרזה, זה אני בניתי, למה הענף הזה היה לבנייה. לתשתיות, זאת אומרת, אני למעשה עבדתי כל הזמן בפיתוח המדינה, בבניית המדינה.
Susanna, what can we do as Christians now, knowing the history of the Holocaust?
What can we do now, today?
Well, one of the most important things about Yad Vashem is what we say. We say remembering the past, shaping the future. So it's not good enough to learn about the past unless you put the lessons into action and you do something about it. One of the things that we have here since 2010 in the Yad Vashem campus are the seminars we do for Christian leaders from around the world. We invite Christian pastors, journalists, opinion leaders to come to Yad Vashem to participate in such a seminar, not just to study the Holocaust, but also anti-Semitism, which is a very important, sadly, a very existing force in today's world, and about Israel today. And then, of course, we also invite visitors, Christian groups, to come and contact us before they make their tour to Israel and come to Yad Vashem, not just to run through the museum quickly because it's like an obligatory stop, but to come and really understand why this place is so important and why this, I would say, a very Jewish place is trying to reach out to Christians today, calling them to be friends of Yad Vashem and really joining and becoming a friend of Yad Vashem, for example, through the ICEJ Canada.
And we have had Canadian pastors here, pastors and leaders who've been in these seminars and have been very moved by it. And I must say that when you do come here with your group, you must see the Christian Friends of Yad Vashem who will meet you, who will show you things that you may not even see on your own. And I've been here many, many times, the former museum and now this beautiful facility here, and I've seen something new more today. So just because you've been here once doesn't mean that you've seen all of it. I would encourage you to come back.
Thanks.
Up next, a panel discussion investigates when anti-Semitism is found within the Jewish community.
Welcome to our panel discussion. We're talking about a very sensitive issue today. Is there such a thing as anti-Semitic Jews? Well, Barbara Kay wrote an article for the National Post, and she discusses the scourge of anti-Semitic Jews. We're here to discuss it, what perhaps is behind it, and where it's taking us to. Our guests today, Bill Smythe, Marian Walters, and George Woodward. Thanks for joining me. This article was so strong. Barbara Kay minced no words. She comes right out and declares there is such a thing as an anti-Semitic Jew. In fact, she starts out her article by saying something very sad indeed, that when you look at the days of Hitler, his actions were to rid Europe of its Jews, she says. And when he died, his dream died too. But now she's saying there is such a genocidal attack against Israel, and she's saying this new genocidal dreams, they're global, and today's would-be Hitlers, she says, are plentiful. When one dies, 100 more are recruited. And she's talking about the Jewish intelligentsia that has joined on to that bandwagon. Of course, we're going to discuss more about what she thinks is behind it, how she describes it, some of the quotes that she's made that's quite shocking. But I want to start off by discussing this phenomenon. And I'll say from my perspective, I always wondered why it is that Jewish people will turn on the state of Israel the way they do under a pretense of trying to be fair to both sides. They know that Israel is under attack. They know that the PA, the Hamas, and the Fatah charters call for the obliteration of Israel. Why do they do this? And this article attempts to discuss that. I'm going to start with you, George, on your analysis of not just the article, but how your opinion might have been on the subject before reading Barbara Kay's article.
Well, I think, first of all, the likelihood of there being Jewish people that actually have this mindset, as we've described here, it's possible. I would question a little bit, though, the actual, if you look at the understanding of who Jewish people are, for them to have that as then their core of how they would conduct themselves and conduct their lives. That's incongruent. That just doesn't go together. But I know that there are those that think that way. And I'm sure that if we looked at our own country, we could think about, there's some people here in Canada, they're Canadians, yet they have some very strange views. They certainly don't represent the entirety of our country. And I don't think these that they're discussing in this do either, but they're there.
At the same time, you're looking at a state that's facing, probably the only state in the world, facing an existential threat.
It makes no sense.
No, it makes no sense at all. She
that.
calls it pathological altruism.
Well, I agree with George on this. These people are very strange. I mean, there are two people that she quotes in her article. Michael Newman from Trent University, yes. A philosopher, I believe. This is what he says. If it means encouraging vicious, racist, anti-Semitism or the destruction of the state of Israel, I still don't care. And what he's saying is he wants to help the Palestinians.
But he even says, or the destruction of the state of Israel, quote, I don't care. Yeah. Yeah. He said his intention is to help the Palestinians no matter what happens.
Yeah. And then there's another
It's a shocking statement.
There's another loony, Nitzan Tal from Hebrew University. and he says the IDF, the IDF not raping Palestinian women
is racism.
It's racist. and
imagine if they were, what she'd call it, no matter what Israel does.
No, you can't win.
And I mean, these are the sort of loony views that George is talking about. But I mean, I really think they're best ignored because only academics, especially in philosophy or sociology, could hold such ridiculous ideas. Only in academia could they be given any credence or attention. I think those sorts of anti-Semitic Jews, I think we can just safely ignore.
I wish.
But they do exist. I mean,
they do exist.
And they're used.
Yeah, if you've gone to a counter, what's the word? Anyway, when they're out there doing their protests and you're doing a counter protest, there are Jews involved, certainly in my community. And I would say that they do indeed see themselves as the real good, protecting Judaism in their own way. Judaism where you don't kill people, you reason with people. I mean, it's ridiculous when you think about it for Israel, but at the limit.
But don't we all want peace? That's the thing.
Peace, but they're saying don't fight.
Israel's getting attacked.
But it's like Mahatma Gandhi said in World War II, his advice to the Jews was, just don't flee, don't resist. Just allow yourself to be killed by your enemies.
Be obliterated.
So, I mean, it's super one direction. That's the altruism, I guess.
Pathological altruism, that's what...
Yeah, that's what that is. But I think there are other reasons, too.
What other reasons?
Well, I think some...
Now, you're the psychologist.
Oh, no, but I'm not going that route.
No. Sorry, too late, no one's listening.
I'm not going to say anything that would say that. I think some of them think that they're sort of reflecting the views of some of the Jews in Israel.
Yes.
But I think they're wrong because, in fact, in Israel, there are only 8% who are on the extreme liberal left. They are heard more because of the academics, the media, and so their word gets out more to the diaspora. But anyway, I think some of them believe that, and some just don't want to. These aren't the ones who would stand out there and counter-protest, yes, probably, but they just don't want to make trouble.
Now, I asked some youngsters that question once. Why is it that you find Jews in Jerusalem, of all places, supporting the other side? And the answer was quite interesting. This was with a swap program where they bring students up from Israel, and they can be a mix, but they all support Israel's right to exist. And I asked these kids, well, what is it? What is it with the other side? And the answer was that we regard ourselves as the epitome of human rights. And we have a high expectation of ourselves, so that if it's seen that we're
killing somebody, no matter what that reason is. It's just totally not acceptable. So there's no reasoning as to what would happen if you sat and did nothing. It's an expectation that they have of themselves, and that's it. That's all that's seen.
That's youth and idealism, and that I think we all felt that way at some time. I thought if somebody was going to shoot me, I'd let them shoot me before I'd shoot them. I don't feel that way.
George has something to say. I want to let him say it now.
No, I just think that those, if it's young people primarily, I think they're very sincere, or at least they perceive their sincerity in what they're doing. But I would really like to suggest that they're coming from a place of not understanding the much bigger picture, not understanding really what their forefathers have gone through and what's brought them to where they are, and the reasons that they exist as a nation, and the totality of what's required of that nation. And to really grasp that, I think that would really help them see a very different picture. I just don't feel that it's easy to sort of think, come on now, smarten up. But I think they're very sincere. I just think they're sincerely misled in what they're thinking and what they're doing.
Before we close, I want to bring up a point that Barbara Kay has written. I think it's a very important thought to leave our viewers with. She says, she challenges, in fact, ask a hardline BDS Jew what Israel could possibly do to meet BDS standards for a morality pure enough to call off the boycott and still maintain its national security. And she will not be able to give you an answer. She goes on to say, too, finishing up, that they remind me of families from the Middle East and South Asia who feel that their daughter has shamed them by her impurity and believe the only way to redress their family's honor is through her sacrifice. The BDS crowd's disgust with Israel is that it's visceral. This is a powerful note. And any quick words before we close?
Well, I think perhaps one sort of person that we haven't talked about is the person who equivocates, who doesn't do anything. I mean, I'm talking about Jews now, not the rabid Jews, not the young Jews, but just Jews who don't want to get involved.
Yes.
And Abu Yehuda, who is a Jew who lived in Fresno, California for about a quarter of a century and recently moved back to Israel. He gives an anecdote in a recent blog of when IPAC, the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, came to Fresno to talk about the deal with Iran. And the natural place to hold this conversation was in the Reform Synagogue. Where did they hold it? In an evangelical church. Across town. Because those evangelicals were more interested in standing up for Israel than the Reformed Jews.
And that's another subject matter, because even now we're seeing some of that turning as a result of the propaganda. And unfortunately, we're out of time. Bill, Marianne, and George, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
We'll be back. Don't go away.
He will love you and bless you and multiply you. He will also bless the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your ground, your grain and your new wine and your oil, the increase of your herd and the young of your flock in the land which he swore to your forefathers to give you.
In this segment, we're going to be addressing a very significant issue, which is the issue of the new anti-Semitism. Friends, throughout history, the Jewish people have suffered untold heartache, trouble, persecution because of anti-Semitism. Because of the diaspora, Jews were scattered all over the world, and they had no protection of their own. They were vulnerable. They were unfortunately like sitting ducks, just waiting for the moment that a crowd, a mob would rise up and burn their homes and rape their women and kill their men. Anti-Semitism is an ugly evil. It is actually spurned and fueled by Satan himself, because Satan desires to destroy the very apple of God's eye. You see, God chose the Jewish people to be a light to the Gentiles. And therefore, in wanting to destroy the Jewish people, obviously, Satan has tried to even wipe out the Jewish Messiah, Yeshua. Friends, anti-Semitism, sad to say, is still rampant today. And in fact, in different parts of the world, it is on the increase. But today in our 21st century society and culture in North America particularly, the new anti-Semitism is actually anti-Zionism. There is a Jewish state today where Jewish people from all over the world can come and call their home. Those that would rise up to criticize, rise up to see the Jewish state delegitimized and the Jewish government demonized are the very people that are actually allowing a demonic spirit to influence them, and they're very active and passionate about wanting to destroy the Jewish state. It is the collective Jew, no longer the individual Jew, that is being targeted. Anti-Semitism is actually an affront to God, and the new anti-Semitism, which once again I repeat, is anti-Zionism or anti the Jewish state, is actually an affront to God's promise to Abraham. I read in Genesis chapter 12, when God called Abraham out of the Ur of the Chaldees, he said to him in verse 1, "Get out of your country, from your family, from your father's house, to a land that I will show you, and I will make you a great nation. I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." As Abraham with his family continued on his journey to the land that God had promised him, after the slaughter of the kings, when he rescued his nephew Lot, the Bible says that he gave a tithe to Melchizedek, the high priest who came. And then from that point on, he was blessed by Melchizedek. And then he had a second encounter with the God of the universe. And in chapter 15, Abraham makes an altar, and he brings a sacrifice, and he comes into covenant with God himself. And I'm just going to read that portion to you. In chapter 15, verse 12, "Now when the sun was going down," it says, "a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and behold, a horror and a great darkness fell upon him." This was after he had cut these sacrifices in two. "And then he said to Abram," God speaking, "Know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will afflict them for 400 years. Now at this point in time, God was revealing to Abraham that the day would come when his descendants would actually be for 400 years in the land of Egypt. And as we know the story, very simply, they were then forced into slavery after many years and after the death of Joseph at that time. Verse 14, "And also the nation whom they serve I will judge. Afterward they shall come out with great possessions. Now as for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace, and you shall be buried at a good old age. But in the fourth generation they shall return here, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete. And it came to pass, when the sun went down, and it was dark, that behold, there appeared a smoking oven and a burning torch that passed between those pieces. On the same day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying to your descendants, I have given this land from the river of Egypt to the great river Euphrates, the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, and the Rephaim, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. Wow. Quite interesting, all the names of these nations that at that time were possessing this land, but had then been dispossessed because of the wickedness of their cultures and of their societies. God made it very clear to Abraham that the land belonged to his descendants. So today, fast tracking, today in the 21st century, the Jewish state of Israel is a modern day miracle. No one can contest that fact. The new anti-Semitism is anti-Zionism or anti-Israel. I would encourage you to do your best to be a voice to support a strong advocacy for the state of Israel. And when you hear individuals that speak against the Jewish state of Israel, or those that would seek to find justification to see her destroyed, that you would not sit on the sidelines and say nothing, or find yourself buying into a political correctness, but that you would speak the truth and declare that God's promise to Abraham and to his descendants was the land, and the land belongs to the Jewish people. In fact, I would say to you, as I bring this to a close, the miracle of the Jewish state of Israel actually is a confirmation that God always keeps his promise. So therefore, in closing, if he kept his promise with the Jewish people, will he not also keep his promise to you as Gentile believers? Therefore, do not take for granted the Jewish state of Israel. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and you will be blessed, because the Bible says, even as we read, when God spoke to Abram, those that bless you will be blessed, and those that curse you will be cursed. May God bless you.
We conclude our program today with some sights and sounds within Israel. Thank you for joining us today, and be sure to visit our website at www.icejcanada.tv or call us at 1-866-324-9133. 100% of what we receive from you toward a project goes to that designation. Through your contribution to ICEJ Canada, you can participate by giving to Haifa Home for Holocaust Survivors, Women at Risk, Red Carpet Project, Operation Life Shield, Bomb-Proof Shelters, Shoulder to Shoulder, Alias Support, Bet Singer Children's Home, Israel in Crisis, ICEJ Communication Media Fund, Christian Friends of Yad Vashem, Magen David Adam Emergency Services, Canada Israel Young Adult Scholarship, Equip and Teach, Bet Rachel Strauss Inclusive Community, Gift, Estate and Securities Funds.